The handcuffs snapped shut with a sound that sliced through the thick, humid silence. Officer Harlan Shaw was certain he had just taken down a dangerous criminal. He assumed the crisp uniform hanging in the back seat was a costume. He believed the heavy gold star on her identification was a cheap prop. He was wrong, catastrophically wrong. The woman he had just slammed against the hood of her pristine 1967 Shelby Mustang was Lieutenant General Nadia Langston, one of the highest-ranking logistics commanders in the United States Army. She had been driving toward a classified briefing with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a meeting that carried enormous weight for national defense planning. In less than an hour, Officer Shaw's career would be incinerated by a single phone call that would reach the highest levels of the Pentagon. This is the story of how arrogance met absolute power. The heat in southern Georgia pressed down like a living thing, thick with the scent of pine needles and melting asphalt. Lieutenant General Nadia Langston adjusted the rearview mirror of her cherry red 1967 Shelby GT500. She was technically on leave, traveling from a family gathering back toward her post before heading to Washington for a briefing that could shape critical defense resources along the eastern seaboard. She wore a crisp white linen shirt, tailored navy slacks, and oversized sunglasses that concealed eyes known in military circles for cutting through excuses with a single glance. At 52, Nadia moved with quiet authority. She was a black woman who had risen through the ranks when every step was contested, and she had broken through barriers others had tried to reinforce. She kept her speed steady at the limit. Precision was simply how she lived. The stretch of road outside the quiet town of Oak Creek was known for aggressive enforcement, a place where out-of-town drivers often found themselves targeted to fill departmental coffers. She spotted the cruiser before its lights came on, a black Dodge Charger tucked behind a billboard. As she passed, the engine roared to life. Red and blue lights spun violently in her mirrors. Nadia signaled calmly, eased onto the gravel shoulder, and kept her hands visible on the steering wheel. In the reflection, she watched the officer approach. He was young, perhaps in his mid-20s, with a rigid haircut and a swagger that felt unearned. His hand rested heavily on his holster. This was Officer Harlan Shaw. He did not come to the window. He stopped at the rear pillar, a deliberate tactic meant to keep her off balance. Nadia lowered both windows. License and registration. Shaw barked, skipping any greeting. "Good afternoon, officer," Nadia replied, her voice steady. "May I ask the reason for the stop?" "I said license and registration. Do not make me ask a third time." His face was flushed, sweat beading beneath his hat. He leaned in, eyes scanning the expensive interior before lingering on the folded Army service uniform in the back seat. 3 silver stars, clearly visible on the shoulder boards. "Is that a costume back there?" he sneered. Nadia blinked slowly. "That is my uniform." "Step out of the car, officer." "I am complying with your request for identification. It is in my purse on the passenger seat. I am going to reach for it now." "I said step out of the car," Shaw shouted, unsnapping the retention strap on his weapon. "You people always have an excuse. Get out. Now." The words "you people" landed like a match on dry tinder. Nadia's internal alarm sounded. This was no longer a routine traffic stop. It was something else entirely. "I am unbuckling my seat belt," she narrated clearly, a habit she had taught her own son for moments like this. "I am opening the door." She stepped into the oppressive heat, standing tall despite the circumstances. Her posture made her appear even more commanding. "Turn around. Hands on the hood. Spread your legs," Shaw ordered. "Officer, this is unnecessary." I am a lieutenant general in the United States Army. My identification is in the vehicle. If you check it, I don't care if you're the Queen of England. You swerved. You look intoxicated, and I suspect you of carrying stolen government property. Stolen property? Nadia asked, brow furrowing. That uniform stolen valor is a crime in this state, lady. And driving a car like this on a government salary? Yeah, right. Who's the dealer? Who do you work for? A cold rage settled in her chest, the same controlled fury she had once reserved for incompetent contractors or insubordinate officers in the field. Here, on a dusty roadside, with a young man barely old enough to grow a beard, holding a gun near her hip, it was far more dangerous. My name is Dr. Nadia Langston. I am the Deputy Commanding General. Shut up. Shaw shoved her. The force was sudden and unnecessary. She stumbled forward, her hip striking the hot metal of the Mustang. You are making a mistake, she said, her voice dropping to the low, dangerous register she used before dismantling someone's career. The only mistake was you driving through my town. He grabbed her left wrist, twisted it behind her back, and forced the cuff on with a painful click. At that moment, a second cruiser skidded to a halt behind them. Sergeant Vance Cowboy Harlan stepped out, told her, heavy-set, chewing a toothpick, wearing cheap sunglasses. What we got, Shaw. Resisting arrest. Sarge. Possible DUI and definitely stolen valor. Caught her with a general's uniform in the back. Says she's a doctor. Harlan laughed, a wet, hacking sound. He walked over and looked Nadia up and down as she stood handcuffed against her own car. A general. Huh? You know my daddy was in Nam. I know what a general looks like. And sweetheart, you ain't it. The metal of the cuffs bit into her radial nerve. Nadia did not flinch. She slipped into the same operational detachment she had used during high-stakes extractions years earlier. Sergeant, she said, shifting her gaze to Harlan, I strongly suggest you check my wallet on the passenger seat. Inside is a common access card. It will verify my rank and clearance level. If you continue this detainment without verification, you are violating federal protocols regarding the detention of senior military officers. Harlan picked his teeth with the toothpick. You hear that, Shaw? She speaks fancy protocols. She was reaching for something. Sarge. Shaw lied smoothly. I feared for my safety. Check the car. Shaw. Tear it apart. Let's see what she's really hiding. You do not have consent to search my vehicle, Nadia stated firmly. I do not consent. Probable cause. Lady, Harlan said, tapping the hood. We smell marijuana. There was no marijuana. The car smelled of new leather and her perfume. Nadia watched helplessly as Shaw dove into her car. He threw her purse onto the asphalt, spilling lipstick, her phone, and her wallet into the dirt. He ripped open the glove box, then grabbed the uniform from its hanger. Her heart clenched. That uniform had been prepared for the Pentagon briefing. It was immaculate. Shaw pulled it off the hanger, bunching the fabric in his fist before throwing it onto the dusty trunk of the Charger. Hey, Nadia snapped, composure cracking for the first time. That is a United States Army uniform. Treat it with respect. It's a prop, Shaw muttered. He dug through the pockets, searching for drugs. This is insane, Nadia said. Look at the wallet in the dirt. Pick it up. Harlan sighed dramatically, bent down, and scooped up the leather wallet. He flipped it open and froze. The identification was not a standard driver's license. It was a vertically oriented Department of Defense Common Access card with a gold chip. Below the photo of a stern-faced Nadia, it read, Langston, Nadia, rank, Lieutenant General, pay grade, 09, Behind it was a diplomatic passport. Harlan squinted at the card, then at Nadia. Some light glinted off the 3 stars. "It's a good fake," he said, though his voice had lost its earlier certainty. He looked at Shaw. "Looks real technical. I can print that at Kinko's. Sarge, I'm telling you, she's a runner," Shaw called from the back seat. "Probably moving product for the cartels. They use women like this to fly under the radar." "Check the plates again," Harlan ordered. I did. "No record, because it's a government vehicle masked for security." "You idiots," Nadia hissed. "It is registered to the Department of the Army." Harlan looked at the card again. Doubt crept in, cold sweat forming at the back of his neck. But in this town, backing down meant admitting fault, and admitting fault to a black woman driving a Shelby would never be forgiven by the others at the station. He had to double down. "Fake ID," Harlan declared, shoving the wallet into his own pocket. "That's a felony. Forging government documents." He grabbed Nadia's arm and spun her around roughly. "You're under arrest. Shaw, get her in the back. We'll sort this out at the station." "I demand a phone call," Nadia said, struggling against the grip. "I need to contact my chain of command." "You can make a call when we book you," Shaw said, grabbing her other arm and dragging her toward the charger. "You are making a catastrophic error," Nadia said, her voice turning to ice. "Officer Shaw, Sergeant Harlan, I am memorizing your names. I am memorizing your badge numbers. And I promise you, by sunset you will wish you had never been born." Shaw actually laughed. "Get in the car, lady." He shoved her into the back seat. The plastic was hard and hot. The cage separated her from the air conditioning. It smelled of vomit and disinfectant. As the door slammed, Nadia caught sight of something in her peripheral vision. About 50 yards away, near a gas station entrance, a young woman with pink hair held up a smartphone. She was recording. Nadia took a deep breath. Good asterisk, she thought. The world is watching. During the tense drive to the station, she remained silent, formulating her strategy. This was no longer a traffic stop. It had become something far more serious. When they arrived at the Oak Creek Police Station, a brick building that resembled a fortified bunker, Shaw paraded her through the front desk area. The desk sergeant, a woman named Miriam who had served 30 years, looked up over her glasses. "What you got, cowboy?" "Identity theft, stolen valor, maybe drug trafficking," Harlan announced loudly. Puffing out his chest, Miriam studied Nadia. The tailored clothes, the expensive haircut, the way she held her head high despite the cuffs. She had seen drug runners. She had seen criminals. This woman looked like authority. "Book her," Harlan said. "Put her in holding cell to the hot one. I want my phone call," Nadia demanded. "Processing first," Shaw said, pushing her toward the booking desk. They took her fingerprints. They took her mugshot. Nadia stared into the camera lens with a gaze that would later be described in the media as pure judgment. After deliberate delays, they finally led her to a cell and uncuffed her. "Phone," Nadia said, extending her hand. Harlan rolled his eyes and motioned to a pay phone on the wall. "Local calls only. You got 3 minutes." Nadia did not move. "I need my cell phone. It has secure contacts. No cell phones in the holding area," Shaw said, then dialed the number I give you. Nadia replied. "It is a Washington, D.C. area code. I told you local calls only." Harlan snapped, growing impatient. Nadia stepped close to the bars. "Sergeant, listen to me very carefully. If you do not let me make this call, the military police will not just come for me. They will come for this entire building. I am due for a briefing with General Harlan Vale, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. If I am not there and do not check in, they will ping my phone. They will find it here, and they will assume I have been kidnapped by hostiles." Harlan stared at her. The specific name drop landed. Everyone knew that name. "You're bluffing." Shaw scoffed. "Give her the damn phone," Miriam said from the desk. She stood up. "I don't like this, Vance. She ain't acting like a junkie. Give her the phone." Harlan hesitated, then walked to the property bag, pulled out her sleek black government-issued smartphone, and handed it to her through the bars. "One call. Put it on speaker. No funny business." Nadia took the phone. Her hands trembled slightly from adrenaline, but her fingers were precise. She did not call a lawyer. She did not call her son. She dialed a speed dial number. The phone rang once. "Pentagon Secure Switchboard. Identify. Priority 1 Alpha. Lieutenant General Nadia Langston. Authentication code Zulu X-ray 94. Patch me through to the chairman's office. Immediate." Harlan's jaw went slack. Shaw stopped chewing his gum. Authentication confirmed. "General Langston, stand by for the chairman." There was a click, a brief hum, and then a gruff, familiar voice filled the booking room. "Nadia, I'm staring at an empty chair. Where the hell are you?" "The briefing is underway." Nadia looked directly at Sergeant Harlan, her eyes burning with vindication. "General Vale, I am currently being held against my will by the Oak Creek Police Department in Georgia. I have been assaulted, handcuffed, and accused of stolen valor by Officer Harlan Shaw and Sergeant Vance Harlan. They have seized my vehicle and my service uniform. I am requesting immediate federal intervention." Silence fell so profound it felt as though the air had been sucked from the room. Then the chairman's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Say that again, Nadia. I am in a cage. Sir, in Oak Creek, Georgia. Stay on the line," the chairman said. "Do not hang up." They heard him shouting to someone in the background. "Get me the JSOC commander. Get me the FBI director and get the governor of Georgia on the line. Now." Harlan's face turned the color of ash. He looked at the phone, then at Nadia, then at Shaw. "Oh no," Shaw whispered. The silence was broken only by the heavy, erratic breathing of Sergeant Harlan. On the speakerphone, the chaotic shouting had been replaced by the rhythmic, terrifying sound of keyboards, someone logging coordinates with lethal precision. "Ma'am," Harlan started, his voice trembling, the toothpick falling from his mouth. "General, if this is a misunderstanding, we can be quiet," Nadia commanded. She did not look at him. She stared at the analog clock on the wall, watching the second hand sweep forward. Suddenly the phone crackled. "Nadia, this is Colonel Vivian from the Judge Advocate General's Corps. I'm patching in the Provost Marshal. We have your location. Are you injured?" "Minor bruising on the wrists and hip. Nothing broken, Colonel," Nadia replied, her voice steady. "But my dignity is currently in a holding cell." "Understood. The advance team is moments away. Fort Stewart has scrambled a reaction force. The FBI field office in Atlanta is airborne. General, the chairman has ordered a full lockdown of that facility. Do not let them touch you again." "Copy that." Harlan looked at Shaw. The young officer looked as though he might be sick. "Sarge, what do we do?" "Reaction force." Is he talking about the army? "Shut up, Shaw," Harlan hissed. He looked at Miriam. She was already on the landline, her face drained of color. "Chief," she whispered into the receiver, "you need to get down here now." "No, I can't explain. I think the army is coming for us." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then the stale coffee in the mug on Miriam's desk began to ripple. A low thrumming sound vibrated the windows, growing louder a deep, chest thumping asterisk, whoop dash whoop dash whoop asterisk, that shook dust from the ceiling tiles. The fluorescent lights flickered. What is that? Shaw asked, backing away from the door, his hand hovering uselessly over his gun. Nadia smiled a cold, shark-like smile. That, Officer Shaw, is the sound of consequences. Outside, Tamat Black UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters roared over the main street, flying so low that shingles rattled on the rooftops. They hovered directly over the police station parking lot, kicking up a blinding storm of sand, gravel, and regret. Simultaneously, a convoy of black Chevy Suburbans with government plates screeched around the corner and established a perimeter. The front door of the station burst open. It was not the chief of police. It was a team of 6 men in full tactical gear, vests emblazoned with FBI and MP markings. They moved with a fluidity and violence of action that made Shaw's earlier swagger look like a child playing dress up. Federal agents' hands where we can see them. Now, asterisk Shaw and Harlan threw their hands up so fast. Shaw nearly dislocated his shoulder. Don't shoot. We're police. We're police. On your knees. Face the wall. The lead agent kicked Shaw's legs apart, forcing him down to the linoleum. Behind the tactical team walked a man in a pristine Army service uniform, the green stripes on his sleeves marking him as a command sergeant major. He was followed by a woman in a sharp gray suit carrying a briefcase. The sergeant major scanned the room, ignoring the cowering officers, his eyes locking onto the holding cell. He saw the 3 stars on the ID card lying on the booking desk. He saw Nadia standing behind the bars. He marched over, his face a mask of controlled fury. Unlock this door. He barked at Miriam. Miriam, shaking so hard she dropped the keys twice, finally managed to open the cell. The clang of the door was the sweetest sound Nadia had ever heard. Nadia stepped out and rubbed her wrists where the red marks from the cuffs were already darkening into bruises. The sergeant major snapped to attention and rendered a crisp salute. General Langston, Command Sergeant Major Briggs, 3rd Infantry Division. Mum, on behalf of the Army, I apologize. Nadia returned the salute slowly, at ease. Sergeant Major, it is good to see you. Are these the men? Briggs asked, turning to look at Harlan and Shaw, who were now kneeling with FBI agents zip-tying their hands behind their backs. Those are the men. Nadia confirmed. Officer Shaw assaulted me. Sergeant Harlan supervised the violation of my civil rights and destroyed the chain of custody for classified materials. The woman in the gray suit stepped forward. General, I am Special Agent Sloan, FBI Public Corruption Unit. We have been authorized by the Department of Justice to take jurisdiction. We are seizing all surveillance footage, body cam data, and physical logs. Just then the back door burst open and a heavy, balding man in a rumpled shirt ran in. Chief Silas Crow. What the hell is going on here? You can't just storm my station. This is Oak Creek. I want to see a warrant. Special Agent Sloan turned to him, holding up a piece of paper stamped with a federal judge's seal. Warrant signed minutes ago by the district court in Atlanta. Chief, we are investigating conspiracy to deprive a federal officer of rights, kidnapping, and potential racketeering. Given what we already know about the Route 9 speed traps, I suggest you shut your mouth before you add obstruction of justice to the list. Crow froze. He looked at Nadia. He saw the stars. He looked at the Black Hawks hovering outside the window. You arrested a general, he whispered to Harlan. You morons arrested a 3-star general. She looked like a drug dealer. Chief, Shaw blubbered from the floor. Nadia walked over to Shaw and stood above him, looking down with eyes that had seen war zones. "Officer Shaw," she said softly, "you said I looked like a drug dealer. You said my uniform was a costume. You said I couldn't possibly afford my car." She leaned closer. "That car was a gift from my husband for our 25th anniversary. He died in Afghanistan 2 years ago. He was a general, too, and that uniform I wore it to his funeral. You didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected every soldier who ever wore the cloth." Shaw could not meet her eyes. Tears streamed down his face. "Get them out of my sight," Nadia said, turning away. While the FBI tore the station apart, a different kind of reckoning was already unfolding online. The young woman with pink hair at the gas station, her name was Riley, was a streamer with a significant following. She had uploaded the video with the caption, "Small town cops assault Black Army general. This is insane." By the time Nadia was escorted out of the station and into a waiting Suburban, the footage had already spread like wildfire across platforms, reaching major news outlets and even the White House press secretary's desk. The video clearly showed Nadia complying, Shaw shoving her against the hot hood, and the uniform being thrown onto the trunk like a dirty rag. As Nadia sat in the air-conditioned SUV while a medic checked her vitals, her phone buzzed. It was her son, Julian, a corporate lawyer in New York. "Mom, are you okay? I just saw it. I'm looking at the video right now. Mom, I'm going to fly down there and sue them until the town ceases to exist. I'm fine. Julian, the situation is handled. MOM, #FireShaw is trending globally. People are digging up this guy's past. Did you know he was fired from a mall security job for excessive force?" And Harlan, the internet found his old posts bragging about taxing out-of-towners. Nadia sighed, rubbing her temple. "I need to get to Washington, Julian. I have a job to do." "You're not going yet," Julian said. "I just got off the phone with your aide. The chairman wants a press conference. He wants to make an example out of this." Nadia looked out the window. A crowd was forming outside the police tape. Locals who had gathered because of the helicopters were now witnessing something else entirely. For years, many of them had been harassed by Shaw and Harlan, paying bogus tickets, enduring intimidation. Now they sensed the tide turning. Special Agent Sloan opened the car door. "General, we found something you need to see in Shaw's locker." Nadia stepped out. Sloan held up an evidence bag containing jewelry, expensive watches, and rolls of cash. "Trophies," Sloan said grimly, "from other stops. It looks like they've been robbing motorists for years, pocketing cash and planting drugs if anyone complained. You weren't a random stop, General. You were simply the first one who fought back." Nadia felt a wave of nausea. "How many?" "We don't know yet, but Chief Crow's safe contained a ledger. It appears the entire department was running a roadside scheme." Just then a sleek black sedan pulled up. The governor of Georgia stepped out, looking terrified. He bypassed the chief entirely and headed straight for Nadia. "General Langston," he stammered, offering a hand she ignored. "I am mortified. This is not who we are. I've already suspended the chief and ordered a state inquiry." Nadia looked at him, then at the camera crews setting up behind the yellow tape. "Governor," she said, her voice loud enough for the reporters to hear, "you allowed this. These men did not operate in a vacuum. They had badges you issued. They used a court system you oversee. Do not apologize to me. Apologize to the citizens of this town who have been living under a gang with badges." She turned to Agent Sloan. "I want my car back and my uniform cleaned. Your car is being retrieved from impound now. General, we're having it detailed. And the sergeant major has already sent your uniform for emergency service." "Good," Nadia said. Then I'm ready to make a statement. She walked toward the cluster of microphones. The crowd fell silent. She did not look like a victim. She looked like a woman who had already won. My name is Lieutenant General Nadia Langston, she began, looking directly into the cameras. Today I was reminded that for some, a badge is a license to hate. But I am here to remind those people of something else. She paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the humid air. The oath I swore to the Constitution includes enemies, foreign and domestic. And today I met the domestic kind. The interrogation rooms at the FBI field office in Atlanta were nothing like the one in Oak Creek. No stained coffee cups, no flickering lights, no good old boy camaraderie. The walls were soundproofed. The table was bolted to the floor. The air was cold and recycled. Sergeant Vance Harlan sat across from Special Agent Sloan and Colonel Vivian from the Army's Criminal Investigation Division. He looked smaller, deflated. I want a deal, he said, voice raspy. I know how this works. I give you the big fish. You let the little fish swim. Agent Sloan did not blink. She opened a thick file and slid a photograph across the table the blue ledger pulled from Chief Crow's safe. We don't need you to give us the big fish, Vance, she said calmly. We already have the ledger. We have the dates, the amounts, and the initials of every officer who took a cut. We know about the planted evidence in older cases. We know everything. Harlan's face went pale. Then what do you want? We want the narrative, Colonel Vivian interjected. We want to know why you thought you could target a 3-star general. Was she targeted specifically, or are you simply that incompetent? Harlan looked down at his hands. It wasn't. We didn't know who she was. Shaw is an idiot. He saw the car. We have a profile. Expensive cars, out-of-state plates, solo drivers. Usually they pay the fine and leave. They don't fight back. And the uniform. Vivian pressed. You saw the stars. You saw the ID. I thought it was fake. Harlan snapped, sweat beading on his forehead. You don't understand. In Oak Creek, the law is what we say it is. We didn't think anyone would come for her. We didn't think the Army would send helicopters. That is the arrogance that ends careers, Vivian said. You didn't just break the law, Sergeant. You threatened national security. General Langston was carrying classified logistical data. By seizing her vehicle and her person, you technically committed an act of domestic terrorism. Harlan choked. Terrorism. I'm a cop. You were a gang member with a badge? Sloan corrected. And right now you're looking at serious federal time for deprivation of rights under color of law, plus racketeering charges against the department and less. Harlan looked up, desperate hope flickering in his eyes. Unless what? Unless you testify against Chief Crow. And unless you admit on record that Officer Shaw falsified the police report regarding the general's resistance. I'll do it, Harlan said instantly. Shaw is a loose cannon. I told him to cool it. I'll give you everything. In the adjacent room, Officer Harlan Shaw was weeping. He was not negotiating. He was disintegrating. I just wanted to be a good cop, he sobbed. The chief, he said, if I didn't get my seizure numbers up, I'd be back on mall security. I needed the seizures. The Mustang looked like a jackpot. General Nadia Langston watched the interrogation from behind the one-way mirror. She stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Pathetic, she whispered. Standing next to her was her son Julian, who had flown in from New York. He looked at his mother. They're just bullies? Mom, take away the badge and there's nothing left. There is something left, Nadia said, turning to walk away. The damage they caused. We need to make sure they can never do this again, not to a general and not to a janitor. The investigation did not stop at the police station. The FBI raided the home of the local judge who had been signing the questionable warrants for asset forfeitures. They found a safety deposit box key hidden inside a hollowed-out Bible. The corruption reached into the county courthouse. In the weeks that followed, Oak Creek was under siege not by the military, but by auditors. Every ticket written in recent years was reviewed. Every arrest was scrutinized. The ledger revealed that the department had taken millions from motorists over a decade. They had ruined lives, confiscated college funds, and seized cars that were never returned. And it all ended because they stopped the wrong black woman on an ordinary afternoon. The federal trial was held in Atlanta to avoid local jury bias. The courtroom was packed with national media. Courtroom sketches repeatedly captured Nadia's sharp profile. She chose to wear her dress blues for her testimony. Her ribbon racked a colorful testament to decades of service, bronze stars, legions of merit, campaign medals from deserts to mountains. When she walked to the witness stand, the room went silent. The contrast was stark. The impeccably disciplined general versus the three disheveled former officers in orange jumpsuits. At the defense table, the defense attorney for Chief Crow tried the only tactic available: character assassination. General Langston, he said, pacing before the jury, you stated that Officer Shaw was aggressive. But isn't it true that you were speeding? I was traveling at the posted limit. Counselor, my vehicle has a GPS data logger installed by the Department of Defense. The logs have been submitted into evidence. I was not speeding. The attorney frowned and pivoted. You admit you were frustrated. You are a powerful woman. You're used to getting your way. Isn't it possible that you escalated the situation? That you used your rank to intimidate these simple country officers? Nadia turned her head slowly to look at the jury, then back at the attorney. Counselor, I have negotiated with warlords in Kandahar. I have briefed the President of the United States in the Situation Room. I do not need to intimidate a traffic officer to feel powerful. I offered my identification. I narrated my movements. I followed every protocol designed to keep black citizens alive during traffic stops. The escalation came entirely from the men sitting at that table. She paused, her voice gaining a steely edge. But let me be clear, I did not use my rank to escape a ticket. I used my rank to survive an assault. If I had been a civilian woman with no connections, no stars on my shoulder, and no tracking device in my car, would we be here today? Or would I be just another resisting arrest statistic in Sergeant Harlan's ledger? Objection or not, the jury had heard it. The truth hung in the air. The most damning evidence, however, was the recovered audio from Officer Shaw's body camera. Harlan had tried to delete the footage, but the new cameras had a pre-record buffer and backup drive. The FBI forensic team recovered everything. The prosecutor played the clip. Audio crackled to life. Shaw, is that a costume back there? Shaw, you people always have an excuse. The sound of the impact against the hood. Harlan, I know what a general looks like. And sweetheart, you ain't it. The jury flinched at the sound of the impact. They looked at Nadia sitting tall and dignified, then at Harlan staring at the table, his face a mask of shame. During the sentencing phase, Shaw broke protocol again. Before the judge could read the sentence, he stood up. Sit down, his lawyer hissed. No, Shaw said, voice shaking. He turned to Nadia in the gallery. General, I was scared. Not of you, of them. He pointed at Harlan and Crow. They told me if I didn't bring in a seizure that day, they'd fire me. I have a baby daughter. I wanted to keep my job. I'm sorry. It was a moment of pathetic human weakness. It did not excuse what he had done, but it exposed the rot of the system. Judge Loren Hale looked over her glasses. Mr. Shah, fear for your job is not a license to violate the Constitution. You swore an oath to the law, not to your payroll. The gavel came down. Chief Silas Crow, 25 years in federal prison for racketeering, conspiracy, and wire fraud. Sergeant Vance Harlan, 18 years for deprivation of rights and destruction of evidence. Officer Harlan Shaw, 8 years. The judge showed slight leniency due to his cooperation and confession, but the message was unmistakable. Following orders is not a defense. As the bailiffs led the men away, the clinking of their shackles echoed through the courtroom, the same sound Nadia had heard on the roadside that day. But now the rhythm belonged to justice. Nadia walked out of the courthouse into a sea of cameras. General, do you feel vindicated? A reporter shouted. Nadia stopped. Vindication is personal, she said. This isn't about me. This is about the fact that it took the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to stop a bad traffic stop. That is not a victory. That is a warning. We have work to do. She walked to her car, the Shelby GT500, now fully detailed and gleaming. She got in, put on her sunglasses, and drove away. But the story did not end in the courtroom. In the months that followed, the state passed the Langston Act, legislation that mandated independent oversight for all asset forfeiture funds and required body cameras to be live-streamed to a cloud server officers could not delete. The Oak Creek Police Department was dissolved entirely. Policing duties were handed over to the county sheriff, who hired a diverse force and implemented genuine community policing standards. And Nadia, she did not retire. The ordeal had not broken her. It had sharpened her. In the months after the trial, she stood in the Oval Office as the President of the United States pinned a 4th star on her shoulder. Lieutenant General Nadia Langston became the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, with a new portfolio added to her duties, the Office of Institutional Integrity. She was now the one rewriting the rules. 6 months after the raid that shook the nation, the landscape of Oak Creek had changed both physically and spiritually. The speed trap billboards on Route 9 were gone. In their place stood simple signs welcoming visitors to a new beginning. The fortified police station had been gutted and repurposed into a community legal aid clinic and library, funded entirely by assets seized from the corrupt department. But for General Nadia Langston, one loose end remained, not to be tied with rope, but with a conversation. She drove the cherry-red Shelby GT500 down Route 9 again. The engine purred. She was not rushing this time. She pulled onto the same gravel shoulder where Officer Shaw had slammed her against the hood. The dust had settled. The ghosts of that confrontation were fading, replaced by the hum of cicadas in the pines. She got out and walked to the edge of the road near the tree line. She was meeting someone. A beat-up, rusted pickup truck pulled up slowly. A man in his 60s stepped out. He wore a faded flannel shirt, work boots covered in red clay, and a baseball cap he immediately removed. He looked tired, worn down by a shame that was not entirely his own. This was Gary Shaw, Officer Harlan Shaw's father. He approached slowly, holding his hat in his hands, eyes fixed on the asphalt. He looked like a man who had aged years in mere months. "General," Gary said, voice raspy and thick with emotion. "I didn't think you'd come. You asked to see me, Mr. Shaw," Nadia replied, keeping a respectful but guarded distance. "I make it a point to answer calls." Gary looked up, eyes rimmed with red. I wanted to apologize to your face for my boy. I raised him better than that. Or I thought I did. I was a Marine, General, Vietnam, 71. I taught him to respect the uniform. I don't know where he went wrong." Nadia looked at the father's pained face. She saw the tragedy that headlines often miss corruption does not only destroy victims, it destroys the families of the perpetrators as well. Harlan Shaw had destroyed his own life, but he had also broken his father's heart. He got caught up in a rotten system. Gary, Nadia said gently, bad systems corrupt good people. Your son made choices terrible, cowardly choices, and he is paying for them now. Gary nodded, a tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. I visit him. He's different, scared. He reads a lot now. He asks me to give you this. Gary reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a folded, crinkled piece of notebook paper. Nadia took it and unfolded the sheet. It was a crude pencil sketch of a 1967 Shelby Mustang. Beneath it, in shaky block handwriting, *, I'm sorry. You were right. It wasn't a costume. *, Nadia stared at the note. It was not forgiveness, that word was too large for this wound, but it was acknowledgment. It was surrender. Tell him I received it, she said, refolding the paper and placing it in her pocket. And tell him that when he gets out, the world will be different. He will have to earn his place in it. But it is not impossible, Gary nodded, wiping his eyes. Thank you, General. You didn't have to meet me. Most folks would have spit on me. I am a soldier. Mr. Shaw, we do not spit on the wounded. We treat them. Nadia turned and walked back to her car. She slid into the driver's seat, the leather warm against her back. As she put the car in gear, her mind drifted to the final tally of justice, the hard karma the media loved to recount. Chief Silas Crow sentenced to 25 years. Sergeant Vance Harlan sentenced to 18 years. His wife had divorced him the day of sentencing. The corrupt judge exposed by the ledger disbarred and sentenced to 12 years. The millions recovered were returned to victims. Families got their cars back. College funds were restored, and Nadia, she had not retired. The ordeal had sharpened her resolve. She was now the one rewriting the rules from the highest levels. She checked her mirrors. The road ahead was clear, no traps, no flashing lights in the rear view, just open highway and the promise of the future. She punched the accelerator. The Mustang roared, tires biting the asphalt, launching her forward. She was not running from anything anymore. She was driving toward everything. General Nadia Langston drove on a guardian of the road, leaving the dust of Oak Creek in her rearview mirror forever. And that is how one traffic stop dismantled an entire corrupt empire. General Langston proved that true power is not about the badge on your chest or the gun on your hip. It is about integrity, composure, and the uncheckable will to stand your ground. Officer Shaw and Sergeant Harlan thought they were hunting a rabbit. Instead, they woke a lioness. They tried to break her, but all they did was break themselves against her resolve. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It truly helps the channel grow and tells the algorithm you want more stories like this. Share it with someone who needs to believe that justice can still find its way home. And subscribe with the bell so you never miss another chapter of accountability served cold. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.